if you don't know what it means, you haven't done it. I can promise you that, because if you've done it, you know what suffering you know what suffering is. It's Dorian Yates said it best.
I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
What is your recommendation for combining T3 and Clen as part of a cutting cycle? Says he'll be using Test and Equipoise as well.
Yeah, I like that combination. I think it works really, really well. And I was having a conversation also the other day when I was in this rejuvenation clinic, and I was talking with a doctor there, and we were discussing how people really don't understand that T4, which is thyroxine, which is what the thyroid gland releases, is just not an active thyroid hormone. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't matter how much T4 you put into your body. It will not cause any side effects, because your body will only convert what it needs into T3, which is the active thyroid metabolite. That's just the way it is. So when you're dieting, a lot of times, sometimes T4 to T3 conversion will slow down because your body knows it's burning itself up. It's burning through stored body fat. Sometimes it can get panicky, especially if you're on low carbs for long periods of time. So adding a little T3 to the mix, okay, to kind of, which overrides that T4. You don't have to worry about the T4 to T3 conversion because you're taking the T3. It automatically increases, metabolism. Now, obviously, if you take too much T3, that's not good, because then you could risk losing muscle. But, assuming you're taking like steroids or clenbuterol or GH, that usually spares the muscle tissue. That's why people don't really lose muscle on that. But if you did take too much, you can certainly risk getting side effects from it. So usually people take in a dosage anywhere from 25 micrograms up to 100 micrograms per day. And that seems to be very well tolerated, because it still keeps you in the normal level. Now, the good thing about T3 is if you take a little too much, within that range, as I'm saying, your body might not need it, so it'll just shut down some of its natural, conversion of T4 to T3. So it's hard to OD on T3 unless, like I said, you're taking massive amounts of it, and most people don't do that. Every once in a while, you hear a horror story about someone thought they were taking a 25 microgram pill and they were actually taking a 100 microgram pill. But other than that, a mix-up in dosage, it's relatively safe. Now, when it seems to stack really well with clenbuterol, so if you're doing the clenbuterol at the same time, you get a better fat burning effect from it. It's a good synergism. It's good for women, especially because there's no androgenic side effects, because they're non-steroidal. They don't have any androgenic side effects because they're just not steroidal compounds. So a lot of women use that to get in shape, and men as well. But I'm just saying it's something that women can use safely and not have to worry about it. Once again, you have to know how to apply it and how to gradually increase it. And that's why it's good to work with a coach who has experience with that. I mean, I use that with a lot of clients on a regular basis, and we have very good results.
I'm glad we got this question, because very often we talk about suffering, right? And many of the roundtable discussions that we've had on this channel, especially the contest previews, that conversation has always come up, whether today's athletes are quote unquote suffering hard enough. So Data Flex wants to know, that says he keeps hearing this reference to suffering when in contest prep. Is that regarding being hungry, all the extra time for training, posing cardio, or is it all the above? Just wondering what it is meant by quote unquote suffering.
If you don't know what it means, you haven't done it. Can you click me? Oh, there we go. Yeah, if you don't know what it means, you haven't done it. I can promise you that, because if you've done it, you know what suffering. You know what suffering is. It's Dorian Yates said it best. I saw a post he put up the other day, a picture of him from behind. It was a stage. Someone took a photograph of him. He was standing from the front on stage, but it was a picture from behind. You can just see how lean he was from behind. And he said, I probably could have competed 10, maybe even 15 pounds heavier than I did, but I always wanted to come in the most possible shredded I possibly could to show the most detail. He said, whereas guys today tend to not, sacrifice losing a pound or two of muscle, and they come in bigger and fuller because they think that's a better look. And he just felt that, the more chiseled look was the way to go. And I happen to agree with him. I was always a guy who liked to go for that chiseled look as well. Even if I sacrificed a pound or two of muscle, it didn't matter because I wanted to get that extra graininess, because I think that just shows a level of perfection on stage that the judges can't take their eyes off. And I think that's why Hadi Chopin does so well, because he has that same chisel look. We know he can come in bigger. He did it for the Olympia, and he wound up losing the Olympia to Derek Lunsford. So it didn't work for him. Bigger is not better if the quality is not there. So when you go to that point where to lose that little extra bit of body fat, we're talking like the 4% body fat to the 2% body fat jump. Because most people can compete at 4% and look great. But if you go to the 2%, okay, to lose that little extra bit, it's torturous, because it's like you're running on fumes all day long, because you're basically existing from meal to meal. There's no stored anything, and you're just miserable all the time. And a lot of people don't want to go to that place. They think that, first of all, they convince themselves they're going to lose muscle, even though they're on 10 different anabolics, which is not going to happen, obviously. And if they don't convince themselves they're going to lose muscle, the other group of people that can't do it is because it's just too much pain and suffering. It just doesn't feel good. And a lot of people don't like to endure that kind of uncomfortableness, and they wind up succumbing to cheating or eating a few extra bites of here and there. And if you cheat, you're never going to lose that last 2% of body fat. You have to really suffer. And Lavroni said it best too. He would do vegetables and protein, for 6 weeks straight to get himself into the best shape of his life. And that's how you get that sucked out, hollowed out face. You get that bony skeleton skull. If I don't see that on a competitor, I know that they didn't suffer that much. When I see those full cheeks and they smiling too much, that means that they probably didn't go to that place that they needed to go to. If you looked at Dorian's and Ronnie's face, they always had those hollowed out cheekbones, and that's showed me that they were suffering more than anything to get to that place. I mean, think about it. Ronnie Coleman had more muscle than anyone. He was doing 2.5 hours of cardio a day. How many guys do that today? Guys complain if they have to do more than 30 minutes. They think they're going to lose muscle, Didn't look like Ronnie lost any muscle, So that's what I mean by suffering. You can't be afraid to go to that place where, you just feel horrendous, and every instinct in your body is telling you this is probably not the right thing to do, because I'm going to lose muscle. I'm going to lose this. I'm not going to look good. You got to go there. You have to go there if you want to be the best.
We have gotten this kind of a question in a variety of ways from Bilal Hamidi about splitting up leg day into two. So he's asking, meaning one day for quads and another day for hamstrings, as opposed to a regular full leg day. Is that something you recommend? So I know somebody else previously had asked about, putting calves on another day as well.
Yeah. I used to do calves on a different day than legs, because I just thought it was too much, and they're not connected. You're not using really a lot of calves when you're doing, the upper quad, movements. But I don't have a problem with splitting it. I personally like to do legs all in one shot on one day a week, but I have split it up in the past and experimented with that. And, sometimes it's nice to take a break, for a break to do it. I'll do it for a couple of weeks and then, go back. But I find that when you're doing like leg presses and squats, you're using quads and hamstrings and glutes. It's impossible to isolate it. So if you're doing an extra day of hamstring work, okay, you're just doing an extra day of hamstring work. It's not like you're isolating the hamstrings on one day and the quads on another day. When you do compound movements, you're using the entire leg, the adductors, the quads, the hamstrings, the glutes, all the assister muscles, the adductor muscles. So the abductor muscles too. So, I mean, it's impossible to separate them. If you want to do an extra day because you think you need more work on your legs and you think it's going to help, you can try it, but sometimes it can make it worse. So I'm just saying, if you're going to do it, I wouldn't do it all the time. You might want to do it for 4 weeks in a row and then go back to doing legs once a day. That's probably a better way to rotate it around.